pressure. You come into the mid lane, throw down that cage, and just take turrets. It's so key in taking structures. It's a very powerful tool.
Yeah, and we are into Champ Select now as well, so we'll see just how that breaks out here. M3 on the blue side for this first game, King over on the red, Nidalee and Cassidy in the first 2 bans there, and Lissandra makes sense, going to be the first ban for King.
And it's important for players like MLXG to start drawing bans for their champion pool, just to open up those strong laning players, Assassin and Skye. So Nidalee ban targeted towards the jungle. That's a win, you'd have to say, for King to have that champion, one of the target bans complete. It just means that something will slip through. No Veigar ban just yet, but Lissandra and Zed, stock standard bans against M3.
Yeah, I like the Dade Zed ban there as well. He's definitely shown a lot of recent success on that champion as well. And of course, is classically a big Zed player. There's the Veigar you were talking about. Not going to see him today.
But Veigar ban on the blue side is very interesting. So Love CD, maybe not confident to pick it up. Maybe M3 wanting a bit more of bot lane power. I see your surprise pastry time as Yasuo hits the ban pool. Dade, we know how much he loves Yasuo. He actually did an interview recently where he quoted Yasuo as his favorite champion. Teams have had struggles trying to get Yasuo into team comps, of course, with all the base health nerfs. He's just that much more risky to run. His laning phase is less safe. But I feel like King must know something. They must know that M3 have been scrimming with Yasuo because they've just banned it straight out.
Yeah, I mean, you said it, Dade, a quintessential Yasuo player, but M3 are going to take Rek'Sai for themselves here. So Condi going to get his first LPL game in on Rek'Sai. Very popular jungler.
Absolutely. I mean, we've seen so much top-tier Rek'Sai play. She has so many options from the jungle. She can be a control jungler. She can gank. She has global pressure. She can split push in the late game with her Q and just even a small amount of damage items, even just the warrior's enchantment, just push lanes and then teleport into fights. Rek'Sai has been a power pick across the LPL, and with Nidalee banned, she's right up there in terms of contested jungle pickups.
Yeah, I'd have to think so here. Is King going to take some comfort here for themselves? Skye looks like he's going to run it back on Aurelia for, I think, probably the 3rd game in a row or something like that. And Kalista going to be a pick away. Do like that a lot for Woosh, but also like that it's a pick away from Candy.
And even just talking about his champion pool and say, all right, let's just be reductive and say Aurelia and Rumble only. At least Aurelia has a quite favorable matchup against Rumble. She can play from in front. She can snowball on that lane, and Rumble can just never walk into lane because Aurelia always has kill potential once she finishes Trinity Force. So she's gone for the more aggressive option, but also flexible, also so wonderful in a 1v2 for so many years now. Aurelia is a first pick. No risk there at all.
No, just such a strong pick here as M3. We're going to consider their 2nd and 3rd choices now as well. Looks like they'll be going for probably a completed bottom lane here as well. And it is going to be a Corki once again, sorry, for Candy and the Annie support.
So much magic damage coming from that duo. So much laning power coming through from Corki and Annie. Not many champions can really look to trade favorably with Corki in lane. Perhaps the Kog'Maw, the Caitlyn, just champions that have the potential, at least situationally, to outrange the Corki. There's a lot of pick potential coming through, and already you can see rotation's going to be so strong for M3 because they've got the rotating AD carry, maybe the strongest AD carry on this patch, Trinity Force Corki, and then you can always have that flexibility to have Rek'Sai split push in the late game.
And I feel like we've seen so much of the Corki-Kalista matchup just in general, as King are going to consider the next 2 picks here as well. Looks like Lee Sin has already been locked in for MLXG, so we'll take another aggressive jungler through, like you mentioned, and it seems like Morgana is going to be the next pick there as well. It's a pairing with Kalista, I guess.
It's smart to pick the Morgana, of course. Vi is available. It still is a very contested jungle pick, especially in China, so just potentially having the flexibility to have a defensive option. Of course, with Rek'Sai already locked in, probably not going to be the Vi. Rek'Sai top isn't necessarily weak. It's just not very meta at the moment. But just giving us your Kalista the Black Shield, giving her CC reduction or CC immunity, it's very important.
And that was my big question to you. What do you think of Corki Kalista? Because it's a very common matchup now.
I feel like it's so... I mean, level 2 is such an important factor in all 2v2 matchups, but I feel it's even more important in this matchup because if Kalista can push in the first couple of waves and just look to play aggressively and force Corki to use his mana on clearing waves, I mean, Kalista's late game, especially in team fights, is going to be stronger, whether it's the Hurricane Bloodthirster Kalista or whether it's the Infinity Edge Kalista we saw coming out last week. So, I mean, in late game, you definitely favor Kalista, but in terms of early rotations, which you have to think to some degree, M3 are looking for a very aggressive dragon-taking and turret-taking comp with the Corki, and now the Na, Azir, Rek'Sai combo. They have a lot of mid-game power coming through. You'd have to think if Woosh can get an advantage in lane, it'll be just a critical factor to kind of unsettle Candy, because Candy, again, on the Corki, that's been his power pick so far in the LPL.
Yeah, and almost can't believe, speaking of power picks, that Azir and Nara have gone through here to Dade and Lupa, possibly M3's biggest star players here, but that's what they've got. Very strong champions for them, and Twisted Fate is going to be our last pick here for Assassin.
Twisted Fate against Dade, no less. One of the famous Twisted Fates players in the world. We started to see Twisted Fate creep through. Of course, Cool played it very famously in that victory over Edward Gaming. Pawn played it as well for EDG. Both of them picking up wins. We know the amount of flexibility Twisted Fate comp gives you, but a risky champion in lane, okay, you might say, well, the jungle pressure, it's only medium at best coming through from the unburrow ganks from Rek'Sai. But you have to be so careful with Twisted Fate, because if you fail that first Destiny, if you're just kind of relegated to wave clear duty, and if you fall behind in CS, late game damage can be difficult if you don't pick up quite a big gold advantage.
Yeah, and we are going to go through the matchups now. So Lupa here against Nar versus Aurelia. I feel like we've seen this a lot in the LPL.
Absolutely. Nar's going to auto-attack away at early levels, and Aurelia will scale up and then outscale him in terms of 1v1 pressure set levels 7 to 9. Rek'Sai versus Lee Sin, it's control jungling versus early skirmishing. Again, very standard at the top of the map, but this is not standard. The Azir versus Twisted Fate matchup. In lane, you have to think Azir going to be relatively unharassed, going to be just fine, even has the cleanse, does Dade. But Twisted Fate, what happens at level 6? What happens with the first Destiny? Always the question you ask when Twisted Fate's in the game.
We'll have to see. Candy and Woosh going to go head-to-head as well. Corki versus Kalista, another very LPL-centric matchup, it feels like, here. And two pretty aggressive supports as well. Lamb not going to go for the Thresh. He's played a lot of that so far. I believe it was left open here, but Morgana instead against Annie.
I mean, the Morgana makes a lot of sense to block a pick to a lot of single target CC, but you have to remember that there's so many magic damage sources. We already said Corki, Annie. There's going to be so much latent AoE magic damage that this Black Shield's going to fall off due to somebody. So the CC reduction is going to be very short window before someone on the team can take advantage of their AoE magic damage and get rid of that important cooldown.
Yeah, and with that, let's get straight onto the Rift. And welcome here. M3 versus King is our first game of the LPL here this weekend. We'll see what happens here in this one. Both teams really looking for points as Assassin, just dancing very fancily there in the mid lane with his Twisted Fate here. We got best of 2 here, our first game between these two teams as well, and both sitting at equal points at 13, tied for 7th. They both need a 2-0.
And you can see from this early defensive position that both teams want to win this series. Both teams don't necessarily come in with an aggressive plan. They're just looking for a defensive fan. They don't want to give up any advantages at level 1. And I expect a very, very close series coming out between these two teams.
Yeah, I mean, a draw at this point is almost a loss for both teams at this particular point. So someone's going to have to get ahead, and we'll see, you know, once the first game's over, which team decides to defend here. So a very important opening game in this best of 2. It's weird to talk about momentum in a best of 2, but if there ever was a game that was going to determine momentum in this sort of series, it's this one.
And you might wonder why I was saying, okay, Dade, he has a pretty good matchup against TF. TF's lane pressure in a 1v1 sense is quite low. So why does he take the cleanse? Why does he go for the defensive summoner? On the one hand, you can look at the kit of Azir and say, look, in a team fight, he wants to be doing consistent damage, so it makes sense to take a summoner that prevents him from being crowd controlled for multiple seconds. But we have to respect, you feel like Dade has to respect Twisted Fate Lee Sin as a duo, because then a targeted stun and all the early skirmish damage that Lee Sin can do with early ganks, I feel like Dade has picked just to get himself through laning phase with this summoner choice.
Yeah, and we've definitely seen Dade's Azir in team fights and skirmishes look absolutely beautiful. So we'll see how the early lanes break out. We do break out into standard lanes here as well. Both jungles actually going to start on the right-hand side of their jungle as well.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see when the first ganks start to hit mid lane, as in the bottom lane. Relic Shield Annie is the pickup from Love CD.
Very interesting stuff, and we saw Relic Shield Vega, I believe, last week. I know one of your favorites, Papa Smithy. What are your thoughts on this particular Relic Shield support?
Yeah, it's actually the second Relic Shield Annie. I can't say for sure whether it was coming out from Love CD, but at the end of the day, you can build up stun charges last hitting a minion, and you actually provide sustain for your lane. So in a lane swap situation, I don't like it as much. But in a 2v2 where you're going to be auto-attacking a lot, you're going to be taking down minions, and you're not going to necessarily be roaming early, the sustain and shared gold is actually a fine pickup in a 2v2.
Yeah, Dada, though, getting aggressive in the mid lane. Assassin forced to back away there as well. And again, Azir full power pretty much here on this particular patch. Just so good at poking people out.
I mean, of course, he has seen a small nerf on this patch, but nothing like what he saw in 5.3. So still a very viable choice. It'll be interesting to see whether Azir can completely leaves the LPL once we hit 5.3, 5.4. That's what we've seen across other scenes, but Dade, while that champion's strong, going to pick it up.
Yeah, you best believe Dade is going to be playing it here as we'll continue the lane matchups. Twisted Fate actually pretty significantly behind in CS, but does have almost a full wave to try and collect here. So we'll see how much Assassin can get done, and just general across the lanes, things looking pretty safe. MLXG a little low in his jungle, might even look for a gank here, but he's very low on health.
Yeah, but Twisted Fate has controlled his lane. Okay, he's given up CS, but Azir has to overextend to push in the wave. This is an open timing for MXG.
He's going in there as well. Now Q's on to Dade. Dade very low there. The red buff doing work. Looper is down here, but First Blood already over to MLXG. Dodges the next boomerang, but can't dodge the auto, and Sky has come down. A good knock up there from Condi moving in as well. And just the trade there. First Blood, though, does go to King.
Yeah, Condi actually stayed on killing the Scuttle Crab for quite a long time, so he's very slow in reacting to the 2v1 situation. Dade falls first. Okay, they move double buffs onto Looper. If he can take massive advantage of that, it might be okay, but you have to say, if Condi was faster to react, Dade might have lived.
He might have. Instead, Assassin actually going to collect a lot of extra CS here in this lane. Push that in there. Now be ahead on CS against Dade, who's looking very aggressive. Gone back for double Doran's ring.
I mean, this game just sprung to life in an instant. You can understand Condi in his first competitive game, really just trying to get there. That Chinese jungler perhaps made a small misdecision. It hasn't cost his team a lot. It's only 100 gold is the advantage coming through with the First Blood, but going to have to really be on point this game is Condi.
Yeah, and MLXG going very, I want to say, defensive with his early build here. We've got the Chilling Smite built up for Condi early on after some of that farming. Sightstone before jungle item here is the choice for Lee Sin.
And look, when we see a tier before jungle item, say a Nidalee, you might say, okay, he's going for a more aggressive snowball choice. I actually feel like Sightstone on Lee Sin is a bit of a snowball choice because you open up so much mobility for ganking. Okay, you might think, if this was a Nunu, you'd say, okay, very defensive start. It's going to ward up the enemy buffs and bring predictability. But Lee Sin's kit, he just synergizes so well with the mobility that wards bring him that this actually gives just as many offensive options as it relieves pressure for his lanes.
And of course, we mentioned King wanting to get their lanes going early, MLXG wanting to play aggressively. This Sightstone will enable him to get more vision and make more plays.
Well, I mean, if you want to consider defensive options for a jungler, it's clearing their camps. And it doesn't help you clear your camps at all picking up a Sightstone. So he's actually, if anything, looking for just a bit more jungle pressure, whether it's relieving pressure for his lanes or creating pressure with the ward jumps.
And we'll have to see how that pans out here as Dade back in his lane with the Doran's rings, as we said. Assassin has also gone back, got a Doran's ring and an app tome for himself after starting with Boots, actually, was the interesting first item choice.
Twisted Fate always is slightly ahead in terms of items. Of course, he has the passive, the loaded dice, so picks up just that much more gold from early CS. Ahead in terms of stats, you'd have to say, in terms of AP, but doesn't have that little burst of health from the double Dorans.
No, and again, Twisted Fate lands, you really are just happy if you're farming up safely, which seems like Assassin is getting done here as well. Back down the bottom, no Candy. Couple CS ahead here against Woosh's Kalista, but everything going pretty much normal for them.
I'd like to see a second visit to the mid lane coming through from MLXG. He knows that both summoners are down for Dade. Actually, Cleanse on a shorter cooldown is going to come up in the next 40 seconds or so, but take advantage of Dade early. Make sure he's on the defensive in lane, and you open up so much space for Twisted Fate. Always poke his head out of the lane, always walk through the brushes, and threaten that level 6 Destiny.
Instead, MLXG actually gone back now has his own Chilling Smite, but will be quite delayed to the Warrior enchant if that is what he wants to go for. So, you know, investing in some early vision here with the Sightstone, we'll see if that does make it work for King, as M3 still a very slight gold lead.
In terms of laning phase, it's been so even across the board. The only big CS advantage is Candy once again. 8 CS, look, it's nothing to write home about, but at least in this matchup where you'd expect Corki to win it early, he's been able to do that. There was no early push, but the Destiny's popped.
Yeah, that actually spots Condi there as also. Sky actually now going to join in MLXG's here as well. A good stun lands in. They want Rek'Sai as the first target. Sky might look to dive in as well. The Hyper about to proc on Assassin. Condi flashes out. The stun card comes back here, but Assassin can't find a target, and Destiny misfires there, you have to say.
And I feel like King and Assassin particularly should have initiated onto Looper. Looper didn't have flash. They would have been able to communicate that Condi didn't use flash in the previous engage, but in this situation they focused onto Condi. He was able to flash away defensively. Maybe he didn't even need to use that summoner as the fight turned out. But the result, Destiny used, very long cooldown now, coming for the Destiny, and no pressure really got.
No, and some spare time now for Dade actually in the lane here just to clean out some creeps, continue shoving the wave into turret, and actually get quite far ahead. 10 CS and counting now for this Azir.
And Azir's going to keep powering up through the game. He's not able to follow these ganks, so his only answer is to power farm, just the same as if it was a Karthus in the mid lane. Going to respond to roaming with farming and doing turret pressure. So he's very happy with the lane, especially that no gank came through. No bonus gold comes through to the Twisted Fate. it, and he'll just keep farming away.
Oh, well played here. Is back in towards the bottom. Condi, you can see, actually cleaning out his red buff. So going to be level 6 fairly soon on this Rek'Sai, able to use that ultimate for just mainly efficient farming purposes here. It's Condi, there we go. Does ding level 6 and red buff again. Maybe even look for a gank here.
His neural network right now is centered towards the top of the map, so he has more flexible options ganking around the top if he wants to respond to any pressure on the top wave. He needs to actually add some of these tunnels towards the 2v2 lane and down the bottom, just to give him an option to respond to the Twisted Fate ult.
Yeah, with Dragon potentially being a lookout as well here for these teams also would make sense. But just in general with Rek'Sai, it's such an interesting playstyle, but kind of getting ahead by farming your jungle consistently, putting tunnels through it really is the cornerstone of Rek'Sai, I feel like.
But your global has so much counterplay. If you try and be too aggressive with your tunnel positions, they can be standard on, and of course you remove the power that comes through from the option to have global presence. He needs to be the one reacting to the pressure from Twisted Fate, because otherwise they'll lose an advantage in the top lane if it's not a double teleport. And if it is, it could potentially be a 4v3. So if he doesn't have a tunnel towards this bottom lane, of course he has them around his buffs, but he just needs one to give him a realistic option to show up in a very fast 4v4.
Yeah, just extend the network here as Looper and Sky going to continue farming up against each other. Both actually have finished their first early item, so a Phage apiece here. A bit more of an aggressive choice here for Looper.
But everyone is holding on to masses of gold in the bottom lane. No one's been harassed enough to fall back. 2,400 gold versus 2,300, nothing to write about. Candy definitely going to have at least the Phage Sheen, so it's going to be a massive first buy for him. He's about 200 gold to complete those items, though he does eat a Dark Bind.
Yeah, good poke there by Whoosh, actually throwing in the spear and then just tapping him for a couple of Ren sets here, and again dancing around the Phosphorus Bomb. At this point especially, Whoosh looks very comfortable, but I want to draw your attention to the mid lane again here. We've seen the early pickups, and Twisted Fate's gone for very fast cooldown boots.
Yeah, CDR boots. You don't see this from a Twisted Fate. With the Ghost Flash, it's probably going to be the early distortion as well, but I mean, look, at the end of the day, he's doubling down on having global pressure. He's got the extra 15% CDR. He's making up for what used to be the free 15% CDR from Stack Deck many a patch ago. And that's definitely an ult-centric build. Okay, it gives him more wave clear, but it reduces his damage on ganks. He's going to be looking to his laners, specifically the Aurelia and Kalista, to provide the damage when he comes in with the Destiny.
Yeah, and all he wants to do is come in and throw out gold cards if he can, as MLXG in the top. Looking to gank out onto Looper. Nah does have his flash available though, so we're a bit of a tricky one to try and force.
I mean, Ghost Flash has become the standard pickup on Twisted Fate just because it's about the second gold card. You hit the first one, whether you have to flash for it or not, and then Ghost to hit a second one. So theoretically, you got more gold cards coming through with the CDR boot, but lower damage. So if it gets him the second CC, he's really looking for second, third CCs with Ghost Flash and now CDR boots.
Yeah, really almost dedicating to a lot of the utility parts of Twisted Fate's kit. And MLXG is still here in the top lane. Condi just gets the Dragon solo as Rek'Sai, and he's still here. Lee Sin really wants this gank.
That's why I'm so excited to see Looper on champion, because he knows how to push advantage. He knows how to position in lanes. He doesn't die randomly on these meta picks because he knows the limits of his champion. He's a singed player, so he knows how to run behind turrets and not die. And he's just leading MLXG on a merry chase, just playing so defensively against Sky and has not been punished whatsoever.
I mean, just looking through, I don't think they knew that Lee Sin snuck in here, but Looper is still respecting the possibility, it seems like. And MLXG, after what feels like 2 minutes, is finally going to recall.
And it might be the double whammy, because you have to remember, this is level 8 Aurelia. So in general, I'm not really looking to tussle with level 8 Aurelia, but we're finally going to see the initiate.
Yeah, flashes forward for the kick, and Looper just casually bounces away.
Doesn't even have to flash to have the kick to bounce him to safety. He feels just happy that Looper, and vindicated for 2 minutes of passive play.
Yeah, I actually like that Condi instantly altered towards the top as well, because of course your next thought is, okay, Lee Sin's here, where's Twisted Fate?
Absolutely. I mean, it can snowball so quickly when we're talking about a Twisted Fate. But for someone who's invested so much into early CDR and early use of the Destiny, we've had one failed Destiny, and Azir's been able to push in aggressively and just not open up any chance for a second one to come through.
No, but as we do see some builds develop here now as well in the early stages of the game, Corki quite obviously going to be going for a quick Trinity Force here, probably the best Trinity Force user in the game arguably, so Sheen Phage there, the early pickups, but something a little different here for Whoosh. He does have a recurve bow for the Hurricane, but also an early BF sword.
And you can just add up those gold values and realize he could have bought a straight Hurricane. That was an option he had, but he probably felt like he couldn't stand up in a 1v1 trade against what was guaranteed to be the Sheen Phage Corki. Sheen Phage is an insane power jump. It's so close to the Trinity Force power spike that he'll have very, very soon. So now he has balanced last hitting and decent single target damage, but he doesn't have AoE wave clear, so he doesn't have the ability to really push back a wave necessarily. He has to very much respect Candy.
Yeah, and instead Whoosh just trying to keep the lane where he can. Here, Candy actually doing a good job freezing it earlier down in the bottom side, denying a couple of CS. Condi is down here as well on the Rek'Sai, but instead everyone just going to kind of relax here.
When the only way you get away with this build is not being harassed, but harass is coming in.
Connie comes in, good double knock up there, and Layhem does get away, but Whoosh dies almost instantly there, and the all-in from M3 with the jungler coming in very strong.
And Black Shield is just not a realistic option for disengage when you're talking about AoE magic damage from Annie, magic damage coming in from Candy, and then the unbow. It's definitely going to register just because, again, you don't have 5 points in the Black Shield till level 11, 12, 13. You just don't have the option to keep this Kalista alive.
No, and actually the turret might go down here as well. M3 bottom lane trying to deny as much CS as they can on that tower, but they should be able to get it pretty much whenever they like, and a number of minions are going to fall to it as well. So finally the tower goes down there. 2-0 actually in that objective.
It vindicates a lot of play coming through from M3 because, again, it's actually quite greedy to go for the recurve bow into BF sword because you have no wave control. You're basically saying, all right, you're going to push me in and I have good last hitting tools. I'm not looking to try and push the wave back with the Hurricane and the Ren sets. So in this situation, they've got double pink wards down, one towards their Raptors, another one towards the River Brush. So they have very aggressive pink wards, and they had to punish the very defensive options taken by Whoosh, and they did that successfully. So Vindicative is an excellent play.
Yeah, it looks like maybe an early Bloodthirster could be the pickup here for Whoosh. Does actually have a Vampiric Scepter, but of course, could still opt in for the Hurricane if you wanted to. So we'll see what happens there. Sun Turret also falls down, so Dada's done a good job pushing out the actual mid turret and replacing it there, but King will pick up a bit of extra gold for that. Corki, though, back now with his Trinity Force, and Looper on the way with the Giants belt, so everything coming up M3, about 2,000 gold ahead.
Yeah, the buys are all coming through, very significant buys across the board. The Trinity Force is the big one. They have just broke the turret, I believe, so we have to expect the Trinity Force rotation is going to come soon. But from the minimap, you can see Twisted Fate, he's anchored to the bot lane. He doesn't want to see Corki moving to any other lanes just yet.
No, really doesn't here as M3 are going to continue moving through. Assassin actually was down towards the bottom, but going to go back and spend a little bit more of his gold as he picks some up here. MLXG clearing out the Scuttle Crab there as well. Dragon actually up in a minute 45, so we could see teams look to contest for this next one.
Yeah, the next Dragon is going to be a significant structure to be taken. At the moment, with the power jumps you see from M3, you have to think they're going to be the favorites to pick it up. But we'll have to see in a couple of minutes' time.
Yeah, looks like, again, minions still charging into the mid. Dada doing a very good job keeping the CS pushed out here. It looks like Assassin going for a quick Zhonya's now as well, so wanting to very much be that initiation threat for his team.
It's understandable. This is sort of build we expect from Dada. He would always look for the team fight in Twisted Fate build, not the more aggressive, more single target or structure focused split push Twisted Fate Lichbane first. Lichbane's fallen down to 3rd, 4th item territory. But again, he's built the CDR boots, but hasn't been able to get any purchase from them yet whatsoever.
Dada's actually running the top lane as well. Love City is joining him now as well. Rek'Sai's even here. In fact, the whole family is almost shown up, but M3 are going to take out their 3rd outer turret. Didn't even need the Corki.
Assassin split pushing bottom lane. Corki's the only one around to defend it. The turret won't fall just yet, but Assassin, he's on split push duty. Even though he's built, what you have to say is team fight or skirmish fighting, CDR, and towards the Zhonyas.
Yeah, I mean, maybe just wants, to actually finish that major item before he goes in, but he's at least anchored for now down towards the bottom side of the map, and, that's fine for Candy. He can happily 1v1 this Twisted Fate.
Yeah, and just, I guess it's a situation where the Destiny wasn't providing the important advantage they look for from that cooldown. So just going for the split push, of course, still very fast at turret pushing with the ability to just blue card down a turret. That does the most damage from Twisted Fate's card choices. And again, he'll show up with a Zhonya's, you'd have to think, when the first team fight starts. So, okay, it's not the rotations they're looking for. It results in a 3-to-1 turret advantage. But Twisted Fate sitting in mid lane with no turret to defend, no turret to even retreat to, is a very gankable champion.
And remember, of course, M3 do have the first dragon in this game as well, and the second one has just spawned for them if they want to try and pick it up. So King, with the Twisted Fate, hasn't had time to shop if he does have enough money for the Zhonyas. So this might be the time for King if they want to fight, but it's a little awkward.
M3 have consistently had the ward advantage around Dragon. Okay, some of the pink wards have been cleaned out. Love City actually takes a nice burst of damage clearing a ward. But again, they've had the monopoly of vision around this area, and they also have the space control Dade DPSing down the Dragon.
Yeah, and Dragon is just dead at this point. Condi will smite it away there. That's 2 for 2 on Dragons early on here for M3, and they're growing that gold lead ever so steadily. 2,500 gold now, plus the 2 Dragons.
Some important purchases come through. Sky's finished the Trinity Force, Aranduin's to answer, and the Phage for laning. So Luca, he's got the laning option. Okay, not the Trinity Force. That'll come later. But the Aranduin's is the direct counter to Aurelia's true damage, health, and the Cold Steel passive to reduce attack speed. Everyone's very loaded for fights at the moment, M3. And we just, again, Twisted Fate, been largely a non-factor.
Yeah, Lamb actually roaming through as well. Actually spots Dade and gets him there with a binding, but he's going to go back. Does have his Athene tool. See what he wants to go for next. as far as major item choices go through as well. Woosh still finishing his build, probably got quite a bit of gold banked up. It's down the bottom. Assassin going to get found to hit. Condi knocks him up, and M3 get yet another kill.
Just an instant burst of damage. Twisted Fate doesn't have the base stats to be getting. That's why he was moved to the bottom lane. They thought they would buy him more space to farm. There was less attention coming through from M3, but they pick up the assassination. Okay, no structure to take from it, but M3, they've got the mid-game comp. They've already got the 3 turrets. They've already got the dragons. They've taken all mid-game objectives they've looked for, and they're pushing for more.
They are indeed. I mean, we always talk about Corki wanting to rotate around and take out turrets with the Trinity Force. They have the option of putting that pressure on. It's just a matter of getting the wards done, make sure you get vision. And look, Candy Love City hanging out in the bottom, going to try and take out a tier 2.
Ironically, when we talk about that, we're talking about getting the outer ring of turrets, but Candy was, if anything, defending Twisted Fate picking up the second turret because his team had been so far in front, they'd already taken the outer ring of turrets. They're pushing very fast for the inner ring of turrets, and the items are not finished on the carries. Woosh is quite weak right now, has, of course, split between a Bloodthirster and a Hurricane, but has none of them at all.
No, and you can see Dade actually did a good amount of damage to that turret with the help of Looper, almost getting a kill under it there as well, going to clean out the defensive pinks and even steal away the blue buff. So M3, the gold lead doesn't look like much, but the amount of pressure they're putting on this map at this point is unbelievable.
Well, the efficiency of the gold usage, finishing those recipes, getting the passives and actives that you get with finishing a recipe, for example, the Trinity Force versus just BF Sword, Recurve Bow, and Vamp Scepter, it's just massive. You get so many extra passives and gold efficiency ratings from finishing these items, and they're waiting for the big purchase. It's going to be Bloodthirster first, perhaps the most defensive option. And again, Woosh definitely doesn't hold up to Candy in terms of team fight damage.
Sky's actually found Looper here as well. Looper, though, fancies himself a fight. The Hyper Procs coming in, so annoying. And just the Trinity Force for Aurelia can't fight this right now.
The Randomans is definitely a killjoy when it comes to dealing with the Trinity Force coming through from Aurelia. 2 members actually rotating from King. They really wanted to see Looper go aggressive, but I feel I can tell you one thing about this first 20 minutes. Looper's not going to go aggressive, King.
No, he's just not basically has the intuitive top laner sense where he just never gets ganked here. I mean, the wall coverage has been decent, but not stellar, but just a lot of experience and good game awareness that are going to keep him safe as we kind of move through. Zonya's done there for Twisted Fate now as well, so things are starting to kind of look up for King, but they've got to find a fight they're actually happy with.
And, we're going to see the very aggressive Valkyrie in bottom lane. Candy's looking for the assassination on Twisted Fate.
Yeah, actually, the Zonyas does get popped in there, but Candy finally gets a kill, and again, they're split pushing TF not working out at all.
And look, Corki standing in a brush waiting for a face check from an AD carry. That's a natural thing, but he's assassinating a Twisted Fate. It's someone who has CC, doesn't have cleanse. We're still able to really DPS him down with the early Trinity Force and the red buff, of course, giving him consistent CC. Yeah,
getting the Bilgewater now as well, looking for possibly a Blade of the Ruin King second. The very aggressive duelist Corki build.
And there's just so few options for King because they've got so few safe places to farm. Everyone who goes bottom lane is getting assassinated by either roaming squads or just a Corki in this case. They rotated Woosh to the mid lane just because, again, he hadn't finished an item. He didn't have counter pushing and his turret had fallen down. So they want him to be the safe farmer. They've clearly identified Woosh as the person they want to build up farm on, but because he's gone for the BT first, he doesn't really have team fight damage. He only really has structure killing damage. Of course, the advantage of an early BT is that you can get turret damage, but here comes the ult.
Yeah, LXG almost dead actually as the fight begins. Dade, good ult, pushes everyone back, and now Sky going to dive in there as well. Lee Sin did fall down. Assassin now going to be the next to fall as well. Corki ripping through the members here of King as well. And M3 going to move in. That's 2 for 0 already. Can they make it more? A Fate's Call and a Flash will get them out of the way, but M3 will take the 2 clean kills.
They have no answer whatsoever, King, for the Corki damage coming through and the tankiness of the front line. The Randomans is doing so much work. No one can push through Looper. Dade lived, of course, with the cleanse and the Emperor's Divide. And Candy free hitting at the back. Red buff. Trinity Force completed. The Bilgewater, as you mentioned, so tuned for damage in the mid-game. And King, they don't have it. And that's the result of the very defensive BT pickup from Woosh.
And you know what? We talked a lot about M3 in the start of the season. Hyped up Dade, hyped up Looper. At this point, King has had too many good games on a roll, especially on Corki, where we just have to say he's a full-fledged role player on this team. He's a big reason they've started to pick up more wins.
Yeah, Candy's Corki has been so impressive. They're very good at using the Trinity Force power spikes. At this point, might be worth a ban. We haven't seen so many Corki bans, but Corki, probably top 5 champion in League of Legends on patch 5.2, hell, even on patch 5.4 on the live servers. You really need to respect the things Corki can do in the mid game, because this is where he thrives. Those smaller skirmishes when he can just consistently put out those Trinity Force procs and grouping and taking turrets. They've got 5 already. 2 have come down against them, and Twisted Fate is just the 3rd or 4th time he's just really wanting to break that outer ring, but he's getting assassinated every time he's tried it so far.
Yeah, and unfortunately that's bad news for Assassin, as Looper still sticking in the top lane. A second Giant Spell already done. MLXG going to get spotted off here, actually looking to get knocked up. Does happen there. The Smite Wall actually getting won by Lee Sin, who does manage to pick up the buff there. Now Assassin going to get aggressed on the Randuins. Is Pop Dade looking for something, but can't quite find it. And M3 will back off, but again, so much control of this map.
Assassin didn't have to use the Destiny defensively, so still has that cooldown available, so at least he was able to escape with the minimum. Didn't use a summoner, didn't use his ultimate, but the rotations have come in perfectly for M3. Right on point to pick up the 3rd dragon. Trinity Force Corki already quite speedy. 5% movement speed though. Rotation's only going to get better.
Yeah, and there's the 3rd dragon, like you mentioned, coming through for M3, just having a stranglehold on that objective here. Look at the gold lead. It's really shot up recently. It's about 8,000 gold already ahead. 6-1 in kills and 5-2 in turrets. M3, that's a lot of gold that they've got, and that's with a Twisted Fate on the enemy team. As Love CD does flash in the top there. Condi going to try and interrupt Whoosh, but he can't quite get it done. The damage is still coming in. The Ren not enough, and Love CD will get the kill, but does go down. Now Lame in trouble. Will be the second victim there as Candy gets another kill.
They're looking for skirmishes and getting them at every point. The flash has come off cooldown basically with this distortion boot upgrade. Every time the flashes come through, they've got multiple picks. They're doing a lot of damage, this inner turret.
Yeah, Tao actually goes down there. Sky might look to dive in there. A good knock up there for Condi. Dani might dive back in, and actually a teleport coming in out onto the tunnel there. Sorry, so Looper going to push in. M3 are going to try and take it in here.
And all these advantages were gotten before Looper group, before their super tank even showed up. It's too risky to take down the inhibitor. It's so early. That's only 5 seconds till Wushin comes back. But Woosh finally has Bloodthirster Hurricane. He finally has some team fight options. They can go aggressive, and MLXG, he tries it at least.
Yeah, blue buff stolen away from Dade there as well. So M3 continuing to get advantages in this game. Gold lead almost 9,000 gold ahead. Now MLXG does spot off Dade. Tremorsense actually going to spot off Lisi in there as well. But instead, M3 just going to back off now. MLXG, nothing he can really take here. Candy actually backing in a bit of an aggressive spot there, but he's totally fine. Got 2 pink wards actually flanking him.
Yeah, M3 are just so confident, and you have to think they are. They've executed on everything in the early game. Dade eats the Q.
Very nice ult, though. Will keep him safe. The Destiny has come in. Love City could get caught out here. Does go down there to Sky, actually, who's finally going to pick up a kill here, but it's sort of a hollow victory there for King. They need a lot more of that in this game.
Well, that's the thing. M3 have recognized their win conditions, the mid-game rotations, and executed them perfectly. All the outer turrets down, except for the last turret living, the inner turret in the top lane. Monopoly on Dragon. I mean, King, they get a pick, they get a red buff, but that's the absolute minimum you could expect from a pick at this point in the game.
Yeah, and I actually love that Candy has gone quite deep, actually, on the potential rotation series. Looking probably for a last Whisper third, it feels like, with the pickaxe in his inventory. But quick Alacrity boots, actually. Candy knows that he just needs all of the speed right now.
I mean, he has to match Annie. The mindset from Annie is so clear. Actually completed the Talisman of Ascension. So Distortion boots with the Distortion mobility boots and a Hurricane. You know exactly what's coming from this Annie. And Cookie just needs to keep up, because that consistent damage to match the burst coming through from the Annie, that's all they need to win a fight.
Yeah, I mean, even Dade is getting stronger now as well. Finished up his zombies, and Merc Treads, of course, almost a Dade special at this point, you have to think. Condi looking for an Aegis, I believe, with the items in the inventory, so getting stronger. And Looper hasn't spent that much gold recently, but an extra Giant Spell already on top of the Randuin's Fate. He's very tanky already. In fact, going to go back, and there's a straight-up Warmogs.
He's just so tanky. He's the frontline his team needs, and he knows he has the consistent damage coming from Candy behind him. Assassin finally gets the turret. He spent the last 10 minutes of the game and 2 or 3 of his deaths picking up, but it's a hollow victory. 6 turrets down already for M3, and they're looking towards the Baron.
Yeah, posturing around the area there. Is actually Talisman going to pop in. Condi very fast, actually. Almost able to spot off MLXG, but the pink ward will go down. M3 will reset their vision around the area, and pretty much at any point, Looper's TP not up. He is in the bottom side of the map, but M3 will continue to threaten around this objective.
Well, this is probably the first strategic hole M3 have opened up this game, is having Looper split pushing without teleport available. So there is a potential 5v4 situation. You have to respect Bloodthirster and Hurricane, the Ren set potential coming through from Whoosh, and you have to also consider that the person that's really going to stop Whoosh from getting those Ren sets is Looper. He needs to be grouped with his team to have 100% insurance on them winning a team fight. It's very risky for him to be split pushing, and that's why he started the group.
Yep, Looper already made the rotation, just waddling up towards the inhibitor, and M3 with a couple of King members scattered around the map, looking to pick this up very quickly. If they want to pull the trigger, King kind of have to do it now, but the inhib's already dead.
Yeah, King's positioning was very questionable. They were looking to get a skirmish, almost forgetting that they didn't even have a turret to back. So their timing windows were very limited. Suddenly they were 2 and 3 member split, and they didn't want to engage. And the result is just an easy rush of the inhibitor coming through from M3.
And there's so much control of vision around the top side of the map here as well, around the red buff. Liam actually looking in. Dada going in, actually pops MLXG back into the team, but he safeguards away. A good kick back there keeps Condi out, and Looper does land a boomerang onto Liam, but it's not enough.
Yeah, Looper doesn't have the rage bar filled. The Narbar isn't full, so they have to back away. Baron becomes a realistic option. Of course, the Destiny can be popped and provide vision. It's basically a scrying orb when it's going to be popped. He's not in position to actually get into a team fight just yet, and the Baron's not going down that fast.
No, I mean, Condi and Love City with, I guess, a bit of help from Tibbers trying to take out the buff. Candy, though, will move in. Here's the big damage. Dart in as well. Twisted Fate does pop the ulti. He knows they're in there, but M3 might just commit here. The teleport comes in. They are going to back up, actually back in towards the teleporter, but just going to take out the ward there and reset.
Yeah, the teleport was cancelled, so Sky doesn't have the option to threaten with the teleport again. The Destiny's down at well. They just need to get down the pink wards and just repeat the same procedure, M3. The Baron is definitely their realistic objective.
You have to be a bit careful. Do have quite a bit of gold banked on both Candy and Dade right now, so don't want to overcommit with the unspent gold in the inventories. As you can see, Dade's already spent his. Got a stinger actually here for even more mid-game power, and Candy at this point is getting very close to finishing his last Whisper.
Super interested to seeing what his next purchase is. The confident purchase, Last Whisper. The safe purchase would be the QSS, just to give him a defensive option against Twisted Fate.
Yeah, knockup though does come in for Condi. They're going to move through. MLXG does hop away. Love City though, flashing forward with the talisman. Gets the bear down, and Candy going in. Massive ult for Dade. Candy ripping through people, and that's 2 kills already. Sky, he's going to hop away with the Blade Charge. Forced to flash, I believe, and now Looper going to chase in. Candy just does so much damage, and Aurelia will be the 3rd kill.
The 2-man Emperor's Divide, already impressive, but those 2 men included Whoosh on Kalista. Dying first in the fight was the Kalista. Assassin, he goes and split pushes. That's all he can really hope to do. And M3, they want to finish this game as soon as possible.
Yeah, not interested in really faffing around and taking some other objectives. They're going straight in onto the Nexus turrets here. The super minions running. Death time is still relatively long-ish as they're ticking down here, but the turrets are getting melted here, and M3 will take a very clean game 1 against King.
We were wondering which of these 7th place team would be the first to really step up in the first game. It's M3, 3-1 last week, coming out of the blocks really fast with a very fast 30-minute game. Rotations on point, using their comp well. Didn't even need Trinity Force Corki to take down turrets. They were taking them down without them. Just impressive play across the board from M3.
Yeah, just get ahead in their lanes, really dominate towards that mid game as well. I mean, Condi had a fine game as well. His first outing, of course, in the LPL. Moving in as a fresh player here for M3. And we said it, Candy's Corki looks fine, but he was basically 1-3-1 split pushing on his own.
Absolutely, and the Assassin was on the Twisted Fate was doing the same thing. He was just split pushing, he was just looking for engage. He built for team fights. CDR boots into Zhonya's. You're looking to get in the middle of a fight and get a priority gold card. I can't remember any decisive uses of the Destiny that game at all. It just did not work out for King.
I mean, smart maybe for M3. Almost looked like they were intentionally split pushing. Their Looper was anchored to the top side of the map for a long time as well and got absolutely massive. And Dade had a great game on his ear like he's almost always had.
But King, we always come back to what is their identity? What are they going to do in games? They had double sights down so early, and if anything, they lost in terms of vision pressure. Their wards, there were times they had 6, 8, 10 wards on the map, but they just weren't really using them for any, like, you could see what they had vision of, but you didn't see any kind of plan. You didn't see any trends coming through from their wards. They weren't looking to contest enemy buffs. They were letting M3 play their own game, and M3 said thanks very much and won in 30 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I like some of the aggression for MLXG, but King have to look at something here. I mean, this is the interesting part, is that at this point, they can't win the series 2-0, obviously, with already done a loss. But they have to make something happen here.
Yeah, split is the minimum for King, you'd have to say, coming into this series, and it's the maximum they're going to get now. And if they're playing on that form, if they come in with such a scattered game plan and let M3 actually, for once, execute on a decisive mid-game rotations, they're going to lose 2-0.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Big pressure now out onto King as well. M3 would love the 3 points. Absolutely critical. So we'll see if they can get them. Game 2 is coming right up.